Hello, it is I, Dr. Brian Lorgon 111, and welcome back to Blueprints, the game that dares to wonder what would happen if you left a 14-year-old boy to camp outside in a tent for 7 months without a shower. All joking aside, I thought it would be fun to do something special for episode 100, so I did the legwork to put every known date I have into one giant timeline, starting from 1809 up until November 7th, 1993, which is day one, the day that Simon arrives. Which is kind of ironic because I think it was just in the previous episode I said something like, there's no typos in the game, everything's intentional, everything has to be scrutinized in fine detail. And then I was talking to a friend of mine who had finished the game, finished like in air quotes or whatever. I was talking about some timeline inconsistencies that I'd noticed. And he asked me, have you read the patch notes? And I was like, no. So, long story short, there have been some patches since I've started playing, and some of the screenshots that I've taken contain dates or timeline information that needs to be updated. One particular example I know of is that the new clue poster that appears in the bookshop now suggests a different publishing date for the book. And so this is going to throw off some of my timeline analysis. So rather than go over the timeline together today, I think we'll need to spend some days in-game revisiting some of the documents to obtain the corrected versions from the patches. So unfortunately, the timeline is not going to be the topic of today in episode 100. But I do have some other really interesting stuff to go over. We're not going to be actually playing the game today, by the way. This is just going to be like lore and speculation and insights video, reviewing all the things that I've discovered and what I still have yet to find. So to begin, just a little thing I noticed from starting to watch someone else play the game. I think I just started... This is probably the 7th person I'm watching that I just started on their episode 1, and I'm like 10 episodes into their series. But... at the very beginning, when you first enter the house and get the note from Herbert, he says, your grandmother used to say, don't go where the path leads, abandon the path, and go where you want it to lead. And it occurs to me that's kind of a clue for the puzzle that we solve in the draft blueprints, because part of the puzzle, like after you had mapped out the entire mansion there or whatever, involved going somewhere that the path did not leave, going into the back of the furnace room that ends up being the front of the hidden room 46 when you take the correct path to get there. And I know that there's another puzzle, like in the blueprints, there's another path that's interesting to take. And so I wonder if once again I might have to use that advice and like walk through a wall or something that's going to turn out to not actually really exist. We're going to go where we want the path to go, rather than where it appears the path is going. Here's some fun stuff that I noticed from the game lore. We know from Clara's note in the tomb that Mary is an adopted child, and she's actually part of the royal Arindian bloodline. But if for some reason you didn't translate the Eurasian in order to understand Clara's notes, there are a lot of other hints. This game is very good at redundant cluing. So most obviously, we've got the archive documents that were locked in the filing cabinets that mention the J.R.E. daughter who was born in Araja, and that is just adjacent to the filing cabinet that had Mary's locked away birth certificate. And if I know anything about games with mysteries, like when you find a birth certificate, it's because someone's adopted. But there's some more subtle clues as well. We've got the fact that Lady Clara allegedly referred to Mary as Merry Christmas, which is a very awkward nickname for your own child who was born in January according to her birth certificate. But if we were to imagine that the child was dumped upon you in late December, and maybe it took you a little time, like a month, to use your family's extraordinary wealth and influence to forge the appropriate documents of a birth certificate, then it starts to make more sense to call her Merry Christmas. And finally, did you know that this game loves puns? I don't know if anyone has ever noticed this before, but the title of the game, Blueprints, a Colorful Royal, is actually a pun on blueprints, as in architectural diagram. Puns! Anyway, Mary's active fake passport lists her as Jean Ribbon. Jean Ribbon. A gene ribbon is a strand of DNA. Why don't you just clobber us over the head with the fact that she's of the royal bloodline? In the car in the garage, we find the note about the address to deliver the moonshine that Denny had been making in the still. And I had wondered who had written that note for a while. I had speculated it might be Bridget, but I finally sat down and did the handwriting analysis. Bridget, we have one good sample from her from the solarium, and her handwriting is distinctive. The lowercase k's and the lowercase p's are especially distinctive. So it was indeed Bridget who wrote the note in the car. As a result, along with Christoph, who was quote unquote under Denny's thumb, and we know Christoph got paid for doing the bootlegging, Bridget was also a party to what was going on. And I have to wonder if this is who Denny was pining for when he said, she loves me not, in his gardening notebook. And so I have to wonder if Bridget is really trustworthy. But then the same line of reasoning caused me to do some handwriting analysis on some more far-flung samples of handwriting that we have. Here's a couple. Within a timely manner is written on the schoolhouse chalkboard, and it's written in Mary's handwriting. The scratchings in the back of the old foreman's copy of Realm and Ruin are in Caleb's handwriting. And I've called out a couple of bits here that just makes each of their handwritings distinctive. For example, Mary writes her lowercase a's the same way that I do when I'm doing my own handwriting on my post-it notes and things. And Caleb has just some very distinctive letters, like his capital M and his lowercase g. But this makes me wonder why Mary was writing something in the schoolhouse, or why Caleb was hunting around in the precipice and looking at Realm and Ruin. And so that caused me to continue reviewing other handwriting samples, and when I went to the copy of Red Prince that's in the master bedroom, I saw this, which is a note from Mary to Herbert in the front cover, except the fact that the note is written in Clara's handwriting. We know that handwriting very well from the tomb note that Clara left to Mary, and once again I've highlighted some of the distinctive features of Clara's handwriting. And so this is just clearly a bug, right? The game developers have a few different handwriting fonts that they're using to create the text images in the game, and somebody used the wrong font on this page, is all that I can imagine. But that makes me wonder how sound any of my other handwriting analysis might be. I've filed a bug report with the developers regardless. Okay, here's something really interesting. We've already used the cursed effigy in the shrine, along with the scepter and the crown, to ascend the blue throne. But the lockbox that contains the stone effigy has totemic symbols on top of it, and some people might think I'm crazy, but I think these symbols are meaningful. You will recall that when I used the magnifying glass on the letter from Dad in the mailroom, the stamp looked different when it was magnified. If we rotate that stamp upright, I sure think it looks a lot like the middle symbol on the cursed box. And you might recall that there's one other place in the game where I've used the magnifying glass and had it reveal something unexpected and different, something other than what you'd expect just to see magnified. In the library blank books that we put the still water on, Tended Rose Vine was written in all caps. But once we used the magnifying glass on it, it became Tended Rose Vine that was written in mixed uppercase and lowercase. And furthermore, on that very page, we have a spiral, the vine that's spiraling around, and the third symbol on the cursed box is a spiral. Orve, on the very next page in the library, said that the end of the spiral is near. Stay vigilant. So possibly I have 2 correspondences to 2 out of the 3 symbols on the cursed box. I don't think I've witnessed something that might resemble the first symbol yet, but I'm going to be keeping a sharp eye out from now on. I've now talked to 3 different friends who have finished, once again finished in air quotes, the game, and just found the will in Blue Room 46 and don't know what else there is after that. But clearly there's more puzzles in there. Like, I had the one friend who was giving me hints to use the still water and the secret passage to even get into the draft blueprints rooms, and then was trying to hint me about the colors in the poem. But meanwhile, I was trying to interpret his hints to solve a different puzzle. I was doing all kinds of stuff. I have kind of some stuff on the screen showing a bunch of different routes that I tried, and I was anagramming the letters of the paths that I was going through, and I was doing all kinds of things trying to find my way through that blue house. But in any case, there's totally another puzzle there. Like, this one path that I had was almost something that totally corresponded to some of the clues that we were given, so I'm convinced that there's something else in there. So I'm going to keep working at it. I honestly don't know if the game, Blueprints, is like all solved at the time that I'm playing it. I am recording this video now on June 11th, and I don't want to get too engaged with the community or outside people yet. And also, I have enough hubris as well as naivety when it comes to my own solving limitations to imagine that I might be the first person to find something new in this game. And as long as I'm still enjoying it, I'm just going to keep at it for a bit, so stay tuned. And there's still a bunch of other outstanding mysteries, like, why are these letters here? There's a T in the solarium window. There's an I on the North Circle in the globe in Classroom 4. Or letters missing. There's coffee missing an E in the pantry. And there's more letters than that. I haven't gotten good screenshots of them all yet, so I haven't put them on the screen. But there's just weird letters stuff happening. And speaking of letters, the red letters, why do they all use different writing styles for the numbers that are on the front? I feel like that's going to be part of some other puzzle that we have to interpret, but I don't know what to do with it. At the time that I'm recording this, I also have not started any new game profiles. There's Dare mode, there's Curse mode, there's a trophy for getting to room 46 in an hour or in a day, and I want to try those at some point. I might end up streaming those on Twitch, so maybe by the time that you're watching this video, like, that's already happened long ago, I don't know. But that's another thing that I still want to do in the game as well. But even though from talking to my friends, it sounds like I've found kind of everything that people have found in the game, like, there are still so many unanswered questions. Will we ever find the 8th red letter? Are we ever going to get a chance to talk to Alzara again in the long-distant future? Are we going to get some kind of cathartic lore dump that explains more about what happened to Mary and to Herbert and to Simon? I don't know, but I shall continue to hope and continue to play. I am Dr. Brian Lorgon 111, and I hope you're having a great day.